Very pleased to welcome Tim Kruger from out at W1630 The Zone out in Omaha. He's a longtime pal and has followed the Creighton Blue Jays for a long time on this version of the YouTube game previews on Kevin Mack Sports. I don't know how I got through all that, Tim, but I did. Happy New Year and welcome.
Hey, Happy New Year to you, Kevin. Pleased to be joining you today.
Sure. Creighton and Providence in their first of two matchups tomorrow, January 2nd, Saturday at Alumni Hall. I won't be there. Yet again, the no local media is allowed in. I know that you've seen Creighton, obviously, every game, but also live. I'm curious, where are the Blue Jays right now?
Well, it's interesting you say that because Coach Mack had a press conference yesterday and got a little testy over the notion that Creighton hasn't played well. He brought up the fact that they're 8th in offensive efficiency and 40th in defensive efficiency, and they have improved a lot defensively this year. And look, and I know what he was doing there. He's hearing the noise. So he's afraid his players are hearing the noise. He's trying to be a good coach and deflect it and so forth. But to be honest, games aren't played on KenPom, number one. Number two, I think it's if you polled most of the Creighton fans, they would agree with that assessment that they haven't played as well as everyone expects. And it's not that they're playing poorly. It's that the ceiling is so high for this team. And the expectations are so great that when they haven't put together a 40-minute game yet, fans are a little bit antsy. Like, hey, how come we have these stretches of 7 minutes where we don't play well? Like, against UConn, for instance, they jumped all over UConn and it looked like it was going to be a breeze. And then they had a 7-minute stretch where they basically didn't make a field goal. So, that probably their most complete game was probably Kansas. And even that game, they didn't play. I wouldn't say they played a great game. They played a very good game, but not a great game. They didn't play to their capabilities all the way. And, it was a 1-point loss with missing a free throw in the last second. So that, I think the other thing is just what I mentioned, free throws, that they've just been abysmal at free throw line. They started off hot, shooting like 80% the first couple games. But then they've just had a terrible time at the line. The Marquette game, they missed so many free throws down the stretch that could have, pulled that game out for them. Kansas game we talked about, they missed some free throws. They've shot it a little bit better of late. They shot 70% the other day against Xavier. But that's been a big bugaboo. But where the team is at, just so the Providence fans know, like the team took 10 days off here. They were scheduled to play on Wednesday, December 30th. Coach Mack got together with the league after seeing Villanova push a game back. And Georgetown agreed they wanted a break as well. So they moved that Georgetown game back to February where, the teams have 10 to a week, sometimes a week, 10 days off, which I love that the Big East did. I mean, real smart of them to do. Mm-hmm. So they've been off now, granted, they went 9 games in 25 days.
Wow.
And you're counting Kansas in that. You're counting your state rival Nebraska in that game and 4 Big East games. So like Coach Mack said, it was probably more the mental side that the team needed a break. And you could see in that Xavier game, I mean, everybody thought that game was going to be 102 to 100. Well, it was 66-61. I think both teams were tired mentally and physically, and it showed. And so I think the break is good for them there. But then you wonder, 10 days off, going to play a Providence team where you've always had trouble playing Providence.
Sure.
And the fact that Providence is, in the groove now. They're playing 3 games in 7 days. So how's that all going to play out?
We'll get into the matchup in a little bit because it's always been a really interesting matchup, contrast of styles. But Creighton specifically obviously came in with an awful lot of hype, preseason top 10, top 15. I think they played up to it. Sorry, Creighton fans. I think the team's played pretty well and is about where they should be. But it's a different team than the last couple of years. They still lack the big guy who can really dominate the boards and anchor the defense, and yet we'll leave the backcourt out of it because I think most Providence fans are very familiar with the backcourt. But the front court does have a different type of a varied personnel set than they've had the last couple of years. Can you just flesh that out a little bit?
Absolutely, Kevin. You're right on. Denzel Mahoney and Damian Jefferson, both back from last year's team. But these are 2 6'5" guys who are put together. They're very, very big guys, and Mahoney's been terrific, leading the team in scoring. He's right up there in the top in rebounding on the team. The guy in the middle they played has gone with Christian Bishop. They've always gone a little bit small in the post. He's very active on the offensive end, can really jump and get up and get the lob passes on when Zagorowski drives the lane. But he's put on some bulk, and he's a much better player. I think that's the first thing Friar fans will see is he's a much improved player over last year. The big part about down low, and probably has helped their defense somewhat too, is the emergence of Ryan Kalkbrenner, a freshman that came in.
Right.
He's 7-footer. He's long. He can block a lot of shots. He's got to put on weight to play in the Big East. He struggled a little bit with bigger guys, so you kind of wonder about him and Watson if he gets in matched up. But he's definitely he's great touch around the rim, tremendous touch around the rim, and a guy that's really added a lot of size and given Creighton a real depth plus because Bishop is prone to fouls. And so to be able to bring Kalkbrenner off the bench, and he's played very well. The other part you got to look at are two guys that generally play the 3 spot. Antoine Jones transfer from Memphis. I mean, you walk up to him and he looks like an NFL tight end.
Right.
I mean,
He's
this
built
dude
up too.
is built.
Yeah.
Got a good shot from the outside and is really strong. And then the other player who came eligible because of the transfer rule where everybody's eligible is Alex O'Connell, transfer from Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Mack says he's easily their best guard rebounder, and he's shown that so far. He's been a little inconsistent because obviously he's been on the scout team the whole time and just got thrown into the lineup. Hasn't shot it very well from the outside, but is a bigger kid as well. So, yeah, this is a different team than last year. Maybe they still like to get up and down, don't get me wrong, but they can handle the physicality of teams, which I think I worried about last year. Had the season played out and they got in the NCAA tournament, they ran against a bigger team and maybe Creighton was having off shooting night. It could have been an early exit. This year, they're more set up to play those type of games.
How disappointing were the injuries early this year? Their front court would be even more versatile with much more size. I had heard really good things about some of they had 2 major injuries, correct?
Yeah. Both foreign players, both ACLs, oddly enough.
Awful.
Clancaris, I don't know how much time he would have got. He's about a 6'9" guy. If Friar fans remember a couple years ago, Martin Krampel, kind of a similar type of player to him. The bigger loss was Roddy Andronishvili. Not to throw another Avili into the league. We've got one enough already, right?
That's right.
He's a tremendous shooter, 6'2", 6'3", wing guy. Was really excited to see him and the depth that he would have brought. But I think that's kind of covered up now with the fact that O'Connell's able to play. So it kind of covers the depth up there. But, yeah, you're right. They do have Jacob Epperson back, who has been injured.
I'm sorry, that's who I was referring to.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. He's been injured on off through his career. He came in the first couple games, played pretty well. Didn't get a lot of minutes, but a nice, when you get both your big guys in foul trouble, you bring him in. Then his knees started bothering him again. So he didn't really play against Kansas. Coach Mack just felt that was just not the game for him. And his knees have been bothering him. He really hasn't seen much action in Big East play.
I see.
So I'm sure this layoff probably did him a lot of good. There's no structural thing. It's just, he's had knee problems the whole time he's been at Creighton. So that soreness comes and goes, and had a really horrific broken leg last year, compound fracture that's really threw him off. So, but he's a kid that can come in and give him some minutes, certainly.
Yeah, no, I've always liked his talent. Before he got hurt, I thought he had a huge upside. Really good talent. You mentioned O'Connell. Obviously, you and I watch a lot of college basketball. He had just started to show something at Duke last year, and you hit it on the head. We always knew he's a pretty good shooter, but he's more of a bigger, bouncier Zagorowski. I don't know what they list him at, but he's probably 6'6", where Zagorowski is probably truly 6'2", 6'3". Do you see an O'Connell, Zagorowski, Ballack threesome kind of emerging throughout this Big East campaign?
I would say no.
Okay.
I usually when Mac has a substitution pattern, he usually has Jefferson or Mahoney on the floor, one or the other, when he brings guys off the bench. It's been O'Connell. O'Connell go in with maybe Jefferson and then Zagorowski. Now, another guy we should mention that's really turned the Xavier game around is Sharif Mitchell, backup point guard. He came in. He's a defensive specialist. He is quick as a jet. He's really improved his outside shooting this year, though. And he came in and really clamped down on Scruggs and whoever else was out at the point and really turned that game around. And so they've done a lot of 2-point guard lineups, too, with Sharif at the point, move Zagorowski to the 2. Well, then they flex over maybe O'Connell to the 3, Jefferson to the 4, and that type, or Mahoney to the 4, and that sort of lineup. But yeah, I think there was 2 minutes to go in the Xavier game, and I want to say the lineup out there on the floor after that timeout of 2 minutes was Kalkbrenner, O'Connell, Antoine Jones, Mahoney, and Zagorowski. And I mean, It was like, wow, you know. So that just shows the depth that Creighton has this year compared to other years.
The holdovers that got an awful lot of publicity coming in were obviously Zagorowski and Ballack. They've hurt Providence badly throughout their careers. Just an update on those two. Yeah,
so 2 guys that probably when you talk about Creighton fans saying they haven't played as well, here's the 2 examples. Ballack shot much better in Big East play. He was shooting it much better. He went 2 for 9 in the last game against Xavier, but up until then, he's only at 38% from 3 for the year. So he's a guy that's usually around 45, which is where he sits at Big East play. So yeah, he just hasn't shot it well. Now he's played much better defense, a much better defender than he was last year. He got 2 big stops, really one-on-one type stops in the UConn game in overtime that really turned that game around. But he's such a leader, and he's still, as a senior, Mac can't get him to stop passing too much. I mean, he's always looking for a teammate, The other thing about him is just a head scratcher. He's such a great shooter. He's 5 and 9 from the free throw line. I mean,
I was just going to say that you led off the top with that. Creighton, just the first thing that comes into Providence fans' minds when they hear Creighton, they have great shooters. How can this free throw thing happen?
Yeah, Mitch has just never been a great free throw shooter for some reason, although until Tyshawn Alexander last year kind of emerged as a guy to shoot technicals and so forth. Up until that point, he always had Ballack doing it, thinking he was the best shooter. Part of it, a small part of it, I think, there's some – I'm a kind of a guy who really analyzes free throw shooting. I get kind of upset sometimes with guys' rhythm and, it's kind of like putting in golf. You got to have a routine, and some guys don't have a routine. They're moving around at the line, and that's kind of like Damian Jefferson. He takes a long time to shoot his free throws. But when he gets a pass on the wing, he's shooting 42% from 3. He's shooting like 40.
You can see the wheels turning when they're at the line, right? Yeah.
He's shooting like 48% from the free throw line. It just doesn't make sense. It takes a long time. Ballack, and the other thing is Christian Bishop gets a lot of free throws because he gets fouled a lot inside because he's been much more active, and he's shooting around 60%. He's just not a great free throw shooter. So that's brought the average down a little bit. But back to Ballack, he's just the consummate teammate. He's always looking to pass the ball, and a lot of times the other looks that Jefferson and Mahoney get are because everybody's paying attention to Ballack. Guys are all the way out at the 3-point line guarding him, and that just opens up so many things for other players. Zagorowski, fans don't know, in the offseason had knee surgery.
That's right. Off the injury at the end of last year.
Yes. And, you and I were sitting there in Madison Square Garden watching that one half of basketball.
Yeah.
It was kept hush-hush, but little do we know he would not have played any more basketball that year. So that would have just crushed Creighton's chances in the NCAA tournament, obviously. He came back. He said he felt better than ever, the best he's ever felt. He's gotten in, and there was a rumor running around that he may have tweaked the other knee back in October, early November. It was just a small tweak. It was nothing structural or anything like that. I've been told that that's not the issue. The issue is mostly just mental, him trusting that knee now. He just seems to be tentative. He doesn't seem to have the explosion that he had when he goes to the rim on those drives. And, I think he seems to be thinking a little bit out there. And I think it's just that knee. He's just not trusting it yet. And he's just a little bit rusty still. He would have benefited a lot from having a regular basketball schedule,
Sure. Sure.
The 4 or 5 bye games you get when you kick off November and the extra practices and so on and so forth. Oddly enough, we're kind of sitting here saying, gee, he's not playing well. He's second leading scorer on the team. He's not shooting it as well from three as he normally has. But I think he's a guy who needed this 10 days off as well. But, look, when when the game's on the line, he's going to have the ball in his hand.
I'm sure he's number one on Ed Cooley's scouting report. Forget what the stats are. It is what it is. Very dangerous player, needless to say. Tim, last one. I'm curious, how has the pandemic affected this team? And I say that because every single, all 11 teams in the Big East programs have been affected differently, where they are. Obviously,
Right.
some have gone through pauses, some have been unscathed, some are just mentally tired right now because of what the players and coaches have been through, and it's only January the 1st. How about Creighton? Where do they stand with that?
Well, Antoine Jones mentioned yesterday that, the players are so thankful they have a coach like Coach Mack who worries about that sort of thing with the players and made the moves to get him this time off, to have him go home for a few days around Christmas. And the players were just very thankful about it. They did have it kind of hurt them. We were talking before we came on about the net and what it will look like when it comes out on Monday. And that kind of hurt Creighton because they had a monster non-conference schedule lined up. Had they played a normal season, obviously they knew they're going to play Kansas at Kansas. It was rumored in the Gavitt games they were going to play Iowa. That's a top 5 game. They had Arizona State on the schedule, top 20 team. And then they were going to play the Bahamas event. However, that got moved up to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But in that event, there's Ohio State, Memphis, West Virginia. So West Virginia, another top 10, 15 team.
Sure.
So right before that event, Creighton had a COVID event. So they had to shut down for 10 days and had to back out of that tournament. So that killed them, even with the shortened schedule. Their really only quality game was against Kansas. Had they played in that tournament, they would have got a chance to play. West Virginia won it, so they got a chance to play West Virginia in the end, perhaps.
Sure.
But other than that, they've gone through it pretty well. The players do talk about missing fans, even on the road. They get some juiced up the atmospheres and so forth. And I know they'll feel that way going to Providence. It was always a tough place to play. Now, the last game against Xavier at home, Creighton and the city of Omaha allowed 10% fans in. So they had 1,800 fans there.
Yes.
I went as a fan just to see what it was like. Very well run. You weren't within 30 feet of anybody at any one time. They did a nice job. So I expected, there was a point in that game, Xavier got up 17-2, and the crowd really got them back in the game. They went on a big run, and the 1,800 made some noise. And I know that you could tell the players were really appreciative and got juiced with the crowd being there. So I expect Creighton to have more of that. But other than that, I think it's been pretty good. Like Max said the other day, though, gosh, I think this was the right thing to do for the players' mental health and to get off their feet a little bit. But yeah, somebody comes back and tests positive for COVID, then I'll feel like this was the worst move ever.
Yeah, I think these coaches are literally, they say it's day by day, week by week. It really is. This is uncharted waters. They're doing their best. I think it's pretty clear that the players want to play, but I can totally appreciate that they're getting a little mentally worn down as well. You can only have so much fun in your dorm room, in the practice gym, and the games are like candy. You love it when the games finally happen, but outside of the games, it's difficult. There's no question.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim, I really appreciate it. You guys obviously are live on the stream. I tell Big East fans all the time that there's nothing like the following that Creighton has in the league. I think it's the number one fan base, passion-wise, in the league. And Tim and Bluejay Banter on 1620 The Zone out there in Omaha. You can stream you guys, correct?
Absolutely. 6 to 7 Monday nights.
There you go.
And if you ever want to check in, for instance, Saturday, pop us up on Saturday after the game. We do a post-game show called Overtime. So
perfect.
We might even give you a call Saturday, Kevin, to get your breakdown.
Well, I'll just be in my house, typing away my story. I'd be happy to take a break. So
all right,
we'll see.
We'll
Tim,
do that.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.